Hey, yo, what's up? This is Ice T representing for Hype Magazine. Stop playing.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another live session with the Hype Magazine. I'm your editor-in-chief, Dr. Jerry Dovey. And today, fanboy moment, 2 seconds. Angela Yee, one of the most amazing radio personalities I have ever witnessed do work. You've known her from a lot of different programs. She continues to do her thing. She's a celebrated radio personality and entrepreneur, has built an influential career amplifying voices and sharing stories across the airwaves. But now she's opening up about her own journey to home ownership through a partnership with Progressive Insurance, offering candid insights today for us on the challenges and triumphs of buying a first home, from navigating financial hurdles to embracing the emotional side of ownership. Yee's experience blends practical advice with personal passions, and she's ready to share a little bit what she learned. Welcome, and I appreciate having you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I love that introduction. You make me feel so special, so thank you.
You are a special young lioness. You don't even know how special you are. You're making an impact on the airwaves through your radio shows, your podcasts, your community partnerships, and things like that. Really love what you do. Really love what you do. All right. So, you partnered with Progressive and some other people, but we want to talk about you because I listened to your segment where you interviewed a young lady talking about home ownership and the Progressive program. So, you spoke about your fears and uncertainties you faced when buying your first home. What was the biggest mental hurdle you had to overcome in this process?
Ooh. Well, the biggest mental hurdle for me was that I was just nervous. What if I can't afford this? I was concerned about buying a house that was a lemon because that's stories you hear about that. I think you also think about being in debt and how nervous that can make you because when you have a mortgage, that is having a debt.
Right. Yeah. Big debt. Talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in New York, probably millions, I mean,
Yeah.
depending. Yeah. You know what I mean? Um, in your recipe for home ownership conversation, you mentioned that this home that you bought is your first home, not your forever home. How did that mindset help guide your decisions?
When I was first looking for a house, I thought everything had to be perfect. That's how I was looking at it, right? Like, this is the neighborhood where I'll be for the rest of my life. You want to make sure that, everything about it, you want to walk in and be like, this is my dream home. Well, the truth is that if we're thinking about investing, what I could afford back then is way different than what I can afford now. And the reason that I can afford what I can now is because I invested in my first home. And I think it's just so important when you buy your first home for it to be something that you look at the value of it. Is this something that is, they always tell you, buy the worst house on the best block.
Mm.
And that's a great way to also build equity and to also know that there's things that you can change in a home when you're able to do it financially. So while maybe the kitchen isn't as big as you want, or it's not as perfect, or maybe it needs, a new bathroom, or you'll be able to upgrade things later. It's just good to know that a house is not forever. It is something that you can always sell if you have to move. It's something that you want, especially the first one that you're buying. If you're thinking about investment, you want it to be something that will go up in value. So that doesn't mean buying the best, most perfect house. Sometimes that's the worst investment.
I really appreciated what you said. I'm a property owner myself. Buy the worst house on the best block. Why? Because the comps in your neighborhood are going to bring your property value up as you refurbish what you've bought, and then so you'll start to match with the, and then it's going to just organically bring your property values up as you get ready to flip it. I see you. I see you. I see you. That's financial literacy. You
And
know.
you also want good neighbors. I think that's important too, to be in an area where I actually like, okay, this person, is going to help me with whatever school. If you have kids you want to send them to, or now I can hang out with this neighbor. It's also like a network.
Hmm. I when I came here, I'm in Kansas City. I'm like, I want to see people walking down their street with their kids, you know, in the neighborhood, or walking their dog in the neighborhood, or ladies feeling safe to walk alone down the street without any drama. That was kind of the thing I look for. I'm a girl dad, so maybe I'm a little paranoid, but at the same time, you know what I mean? Our upbringing has a lot to do with how we look at financial decisions and things. And you um have a Caribbean upbringing. So, and your grandfather was involved and gave you a lot of advice. Save your money, buy a house was the mantra, kind of so that was your mantra that shaped your approach to ownership, is that right?
So I wouldn't say he gave me a lot of advice. All he did was tell me save your money, buy a house. He didn't tell me how.
Right.
But it was everything that I did to him was like a waste of money. And I did have an opportunity to see him. He owned a home, and that's the home. It was a two-family house in Flatbush that my parents raised us in. And then when my grandfather retired, him and his wife, my grandmother, moved to Montserrat, back to the West Indies, and they actually built their house from scratch.
Ah,
And so that was another process for me to be able to see somebody building their dream home from the ground up. We were literally there when it was like brick by brick, having an opportunity to see that getting built. And that was something for me to see from the inception of it until they finished. That was amazing to me to see my grandfather build his dream home, retire there. Unfortunately, the volcano eruptions wiped everything out
yeah,
in that area. So that was another valuable lesson because a lot of people on the island didn't get the insurance. And so it just also taught me to make sure that I have all kinds of backup plans and to make sure you know what's in your policy.
that's right. That's right. A lot of times, um, in our excitement as we're doing the home search, you've looked at 20 different homes and everything looks great. Something has something that attracts you. You forget sometimes, and especially you veterans, us veterans out here get excited. Oh, we only got 3%. You know what I mean? And I could do 450,000. But at the same time, you know, we get excited and maybe go forward and forget some steps. What role did trusted advisors like brokers, attorneys, and inspectors play in helping you make confident decisions?
One thing I learned, and I had several different brokers before I settled on the one who I eventually used.
Mhm.
But one thing I also learned about was I did not know anything about PMI, mortgage insurance. And that was something that I remember having a broker that told me, oh, you could just put down 5% and you don't need X amount of money. And he didn't even have me do a pre approval. So to be honest, when I first started looking, I didn't even know what I could afford or what a bank would approve me for. And I didn't know, again, if I only put down 5%. I didn't even know about mortgage insurance, which to me, I didn't want to have to do that. That was not part of my financial plan. I wanted to make sure if I could afford a house that I had the down payment that I needed to put down to not have to pay that.
Mhm.
And so when I got the right broker, she told me it's okay if we have to look at houses for years until you find the one that you want. If you want to look on weekends, I want you to be comfortable with your decision. And prior to that, a lot of brokers just wanted me to buy something
Mm.
and it wasn't important to them if it was the right house. I remember I almost bought another house and I had an inspection, and the inspector even told me, I don't know. He was not very certain about it. I think he didn't want to tell me not to do it, but I could tell from after the inspection, the house was like a quick flip renovation, and it just there were a lot of things that even my father came to look at it and I could tell he was worried. And the broker just was trying to rush me to close the deal and telling me other people were interested in it, and he was like, if you want to do it, you need to let us know, and just kind of like not letting me feel comfortable in making that decision. And I think that we do have to trust, not just trust our gut, but also, yes, get that inspection and listen to the experts. They're experts for a reason, and they don't have any skin in the game. So you don't want to use an inspector that the person you're buying a house from recommends. You want to go and even know these people. So I just think it's really important that we pull from our connections in different ways and not use people who are connected to each other, because you want to make sure everybody has your best interest. And I can guarantee you, everybody, that's not normally, I feel like that's not normally the case. And so we just have to look at it like, okay, I have a broker. Now let me go ahead and get my own person that's going to do the inspection. Let me get my own appraisal. Let me get my own mortgage from the bank. Let me get my own insurance. Let me talk to these people directly. That's another thing, right? You have to make sure this is not something you do just through email or over the phone. You have to really like meet these people and make sure you know who they are, and that they know how important this purchase is, because if you act like it's not that important, they're not going to treat you like a priority.
Mm, okay, understood, understood. We're talking about house hacking, which is one of the things that was mentioned. And my understanding is you bought a multifamily home so that one side pays the mortgage for the other. Is that one of those pieces of advice that you would give other home buyers?
Well, I think it's a very common thing in New York in particular to buy a two-family or multi-family house.
Hmm.
And I know in other places that may not always be the case. Some people like a single family home, but I think here in New York, because the prices are so high for a house, because I do have a house in Detroit that I bought that was a single family house. And so I'll talk about that for a second. But in New York, for me, the price was, my first house was $975,000,
Mm,
and that's a lot of money. And so at that time it was a two-family house, and so I was able to charge my tenant downstairs, and that literally paid half of my mortgage. And the way that I looked at it, my mortgage payment was less than what rent would be for a duplex, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. And so I felt really comfortable knowing that I would have that cushion of being able to make those payments, but also knowing that I would always have some extra money coming in. And now I still own that two-family house, but I've moved into another house and I'm able to rent out both of those units, and that can pay my full mortgage now. And so I just think, as a way to get started and get your foot in dip your foot into this house buying pool, the best thing to do is house hacking and get a multi-family property. But when I was in Detroit and I purchased in Detroit, they're not as popular, right?
hmm.
And so I actually bought a house from the land bank and was able to buy a home in Detroit for $1,000. And then I ended up selling that for 160,000. And then I bought another house directly from the owner. And the thing about Detroit is, in certain neighborhoods at a time, you are able to get like a really amazing deal, but the homes do need a lot of work. And sometimes there you can even buy a house with a renter in it. And so it's just different markets have different things that kind of dictate what it is that you can make happen. Because another thing I've learned is you don't always have to buy where you live. Sometimes the best investment will be someplace else. And what I love about Detroit is it's a neighborhood, an area that I'm really familiar with. I know a lot of people there. I respect it. And I also just have a lot of love for that city. So I do a lot there as well. And so for me to invest there and to encourage other people to do the same, it's not investing strictly just to make money. It's also, you have to care about the place that you're investing in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And when you mentioned again, you mentioned, you know, houses may not be in the best condition in Detroit. My mother was from Highland Park area of Detroit. So um the we have to just reiterate this for safety's sake, attorneys, inspectors, make sure you're not being pushed and um driven to make a decision that you're not comfortable with, because there is no buyer's remorse clause in most home purchases. It's not like a car. You're stuck,
Yeah.
you know.
And and to your point, like even having an attorney, you have to make sure that that title is clear. You want to make sure that you do your due diligence, because there are some bad actors in
Mm,
this game. And so to make sure that this person even owns the property. There's people that try to sell a property that they don't even own. And so for you, it's worth it for you to pay some extra money to save you the headache that you could potentially have later on. And so just knowing that everything is free and clear, knowing that there's no liens on the property, understanding if there's, outstanding bills. These are all things you need to know. Imagine somebody hasn't paid their taxes in 4 years and you didn't know that. And now you buy this property, but there's $20,000 in taxes that are backed up.
mm.
It's just all things that's important to know. And if you don't have an attorney because you're trying to skimp and like, okay, I don't want to go through whatever steps, and somebody's like, look, you got to get it now. I want to do this deal. That doesn't feel right to me ever.
Ever. Yeah, that's like the three-card Molly did. Go on, put that extra 20 down there. You what you gonna win? No, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah, we don't gamble on houses.
That part, that part, that part. Um, in your segment, Recipe for Home Ownership, you did mention that, and so I just, as since we're doing the safety checks, the dummy check, I call it. The inspection process was something you emphasized is non-negotiable. What are the top red flags first-time buyers might want to look for?
Definitely make sure you get an inspection of that roof. Make sure the roof is in order, because if that is not, any type of leaks or anything that could damage so much electrical and plumbing, you always want to check out and see what's the situation with the plumbing. Turn on all the sinks, make sure the lights work, the light switches work. Um, I think a lot of times you can tell when somebody's trying to hide things like leaks and stuff like that, but with the paint jobs, the flooring, if you're able to see what the floor looks like, if there's a carpet over it and you can kind of like lift up to see what that's looking like, and I think just, but an inspector is going to give you a way more in-depth look at things than you could ever look at yourself, because sometimes it could be structural issues that you may have no idea about that an expert has to do. So if you are not an inspector, then you need to make sure that you hire somebody, because that is their complete job. There's things that you would not know, because a lot of times people will try to hide stuff from you and act like they didn't know. It could be a termite issue. There could be so many things that's wrong. And sometimes those things can end up costing you tens of thousands, if not more.
Mm. Big deal. The inspection process. Inspection, inspection, inspection. I'm going to say it over and over again. You know what I mean? Also, earlier on, you mentioned about when you first stepped into this real estate situation, you didn't know what you were qualified for, or how much house you were going to be able to afford, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people are, dealing with financial literacy issues, from understanding credit scores to closing costs. You know, they don't understand what impacts, home ownership, the home ownership gap in America. Can I get your thoughts on that home ownership gap, and the common person? I won't get racial, just the common person, the blue collar person's lack of financial literacy and understanding the ins and outs and nuances.
I think, and I would say I'm somebody that did not understand that at first. So it's never a situation where anybody has to feel shameful for what it is that we were not raised on. We didn't know. A lot of us don't have homes that are passed down to us from generation to generation. A lot of times it could be family members who had an opportunity to purchase something and they didn't and ended up renting, because you've heard, oh, just rent. It's not, I mean, there's literally people out there now who are quote unquote experts telling you why home ownership is not a good idea and not to do it. And I feel like for me, it was something that I knew it was the one thing that would make me feel stable about my future. And knowing when it's time for me to retire, I did not want to have to pay anything except for my real estate taxes, which you do have to pay.
Right.
And my insurance, which you do have to pay also. And so just knowing that I would not have to worry about paying rent, paying a mortgage, that's something that means a lot to me as I'm getting older and thinking about, okay, I want to be comfortable later in life, but then also thinking about the next generation, right? And having something to leave to family members that's valuable. And so, for me, I just want to make sure this was not something that I was taught, except for my grandfather saying, save your money, buy a house. And I always say it's not even save your money, invest your money, buy a house. And
Mm.
that's how I would say I've learned to evolve that saying from my grandfather for 2025, for the Angela Yee who I am today. And I've always regretted that there's times when I was younger that there were opportunities for me to purchase a home. I had money to be able to do that. If I would have bought in Bed-Stuy when I had, $30,000 after going on tour and working on the road and, doing that, I could have bought a brownstone
Mm.
back then and had the money to put down. I just didn't know. But
Mm.
it's never too late to know. And so one of the most important things in financial literacy is knowing what you don't know. And so for me, I can have all these regrets about things that I didn't do, but now I know what my regrets are. So let's move forward and let's fix that.
Yeah.
And so part of fixing that is saying, okay, well, maybe the neighborhood that I want to live in, the brownstones are $3 million. I can't do that. But what I can do is see what's next up and coming, or maybe I have to move a little further out and let that house build up some equity, and eventually I'll get to where it is that I want to be. Or maybe I'm going to not even live in New York because I think it's too expensive. Well,
Mhm.
I just saw Raleigh, North Carolina is number one on the list of places where, people can live really well. and have great income, maybe that's a place that I can consider, well, let me see what that market looks like. And I also feel like even me I have a real estate club as well. And part of that is for people to be able to team up with each other and say, okay, look, I may not have great credit, but I have cash. This person, has great credit. Let's team up and let's do some things together. Let's work on doing some house hacking. Let's purchase some things. Let's flip some homes. Let's buy some rental properties and let's build our money that way.
Mm,
But there is nothing wrong with starting today. We can't fix what we didn't do in the past, but what we can do is make sure that we do all of our due diligence. And just like we said on this call, using all the right people, making sure we have inspectors, making sure we have attorneys, making sure that we have contracts if we're doing something with somebody else that are in place to protect us, and do all of those things, and move forward in the best way we possibly can.
okay. In this day and age, I'm in one of those clubs, and we push a campaign called Ignite Your Life, which is basically a group of people. Like you said, some people are cash rich and credit poor, and the other
Mhm.
people, so you work hand in hand. It's about supporting each other. So salute to you, again, for another piece of leadership, um, from the Angela Yee camp. Look, badass. I'm just saying it. I'm just saying it. Uh, anyway, but in this with the economic climate, it seems to be a buyer's market now. Um, do you have any thoughts off the top of your head on buying a turnkey property versus one that needs some renovation right now? Do you
You
still?
know, I've done both. I will say that. And so I really just feel like the first house I bought, and this was a really unique situation. It was a full gut renovation. It was already gutted out when I bought it. I couldn't even walk inside of the house. I had to stand in the doorway and look and see what it could be.
Mm,
But included in that price was the renovation.
okay.
And so they renovated the home. Of course, there was a budget, so each room had a certain amount, but I was able to like really customize and pick what I wanted,
Mm,
and stay within that budget. Um, I don't know that there's a lot of deals that work like that. But I've also purchased, I have something in Miami that's not built yet. And, that is something that when it's done, it'll be turnkey, ready to move in. I don't have to do anything. And the whole price is in that. And I really do think that it just depends on what type of knowledge you have and connections. It was hard when I've done things like in Detroit, for instance. The first house I did in Detroit that I had to renovate, I didn't have the connections there as far as contractors, and I didn't have those. With I do have them now, but
mm,
when I first did, I didn't. And so for me, if you have people that you can rely on who are contractors, if you have those relationships with electricians, plumbers, if there's some things that you can even do yourself, because literally you could take classes and learn how to lay down tile and flooring and things like that. Don't do no electrical and plumbing yourself. You got to hire some licensed
get your
electricians and
contractor.
plumbers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yes, but there are certain things that yes, you can, learn how to do and do it yourself. But if you don't have those connections, it is a lot harder. And I think also making sure that if you don't have the time to get different pricings, because sometimes somebody will tell you a price. I remember I had mold in my basement because the basement flooded from one of my neighbors doing construction on their house. And I remember getting the mold removal done, and then they told me they would put back up the drywall, but they tried to charge me $10,000. And I was like, "Ooh, I just got the mold removal done. Have to hire an expert for that, but I don't have money to do that." So I asked one of my friends who also happens to like do home renovations, and they did it for me for some pizza, and all I had to do was buy the drywall. You know what I'm saying? So
You
yeah, so
should.
and the sheetrock. So to me, it's kind of like imagine the difference. I saved $10,000. Well, maybe 9,850. I had to buy pizza. But
Right.
but for me, just to be able to have people who can do certain things that will help you out. And I've always done favors for them, so it's always an exchange. But I just think that it's really important to be able to shop around if you are going to do renovations and to understand what things cost. There's a lot more access to find out proper pricing for things. And even if you can buy the materials yourself and hire somebody to do it. But if you don't have that knowledge, get somebody who does that can help you oversee the project. Having a great project manager is a game changer. Sometimes you might feel like something is too expensive, but what's more expensive is doing it wrong and having to redo it. And so while I do feel like renovations and projects that are not ready, they can be less expensive to purchase.
Mhm.
But then by the time you're done with it, you're like, wow, I spent so much more.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit harder. It just depends on your own personal where you are with your knowledge of what it takes to renovate, and also the time that it's going to take. Are
Mm.
you in a situation where you need to move because your lease is up and you have to be out of there in 3 months? Well, then a renovation may not be the best situation for you, because there's nothing worse than living in a house while it's being renovated
Yeah.
and not knowing how long it's going to take. In that situation, you might need something turnkey. But if you have a place and you can stay there and you have time, because just know whatever amount of time they say it's going to take is going to take more than that.
Yeah.
But if you're not in a rush and you can leisurely have a place to stay, then that's fine. And if that's something that you're willing to be dedicated to doing, and you have the knowledge to do it, and or you're willing to put in that work to also make sure that you're on top of everything, then you can do that.
Mm.
It's a commitment.
Yes, ma'am. TI is. So over the years, I've often talked about corporate citizenship. And here in this situation, you partner with Progressive Insurance. They've partnered with you as and I'm going to call it not just a corporate partner, but as a corporate citizen, helping to help you help Americans buy and have part of the American dream, the ownership, the land ownership, do what's available. And they've made some special tools and resources like down payment assistance and things. What are some of the tools and features from that partnership that you have found to be of most value?
I think the calculator that they have on there that can help you with knowing like what your payments are going to be. Because I think we also have to take into consideration, like we said, there's insurance, there's taxes, all of those things, that something, the down payment, all of those things. So you need to know what that is going to be, but also being able to do a lot of different things virtually. And like you said, help with down payments. All of that information is really valuable, and to be able to get it in one place is amazing, because I remember buying my first home and having to literally go like try to figure it got a little bit confusing for me. And I also feel like Progressive is a really trusted source for you to be able to get that information. So, that's part of why I was really excited when the opportunity came. I was like, this is perfect for me. Open the house.
There you go. There you go. Uh, I know your time is valuable. You're sitting in traffic, and I really appreciate you.
Oh no, I'm pulled over to the side. You are fine. I enjoy talking about this.
Okay, well, looking back, I think earlier you said, you know, you missed out on some opportunities. But so looking back, what's the one piece of advice you might have had before you started your own home ownership journey?
Oh, a piece of advice.
Mm.
Well, I ended up getting my real estate license
Okay.
now, because I was doing so much as far as like wanting to invest and learning. I was like, I might as well just go ahead and get my license. And I just wish that, on this journey to where I am today, I was just a lot more knowledgeable earlier.
Mm,
As far as investing, I mean, there were times when I remember my first job. We had a 401k match program,
mm.
and I was like, no, I need my little money. And I wish I would have, the earlier you start as far as investing, the better. Um, and if I could have told my younger self something, I wish I would have taken that $30,000 back then
No.
and really invest. I don't know what I did with that money. It just ends up disappearing over the course of time. But I wish I would have, back then started my investment journey into real estate, because I don't know how much further along I would be now. But, I think things happen at the time that they're supposed to happen. And I am happy with where I am now and the growth that I've been having.
You said you got your real estate license. Now, in some states, brokers are the ones who can buy and sell, and the real estate agents are just they process everything through the broker. Did you take the extra step and become a broker as well?
I think I have to be an agent for 2 years first.
Okay.
And we can buy it. We just have to take it to the brokers. But I think the agents are more the ones that are like out in the field,
Right.
doing things. But I am planning to do that. I also low key want to get my GC license. I'm gonna be honest. I was thinking about that.
That general
Um,
contractor license, that's that bread. Then you go to sam.gov, sign up for sam.gov, get them government contracts. Look,
Listen, I'm already like, okay, I've already been looking into what I need to do in order to get that because I've worked with so many GCs
mhm,
and I see how they operate and I feel like the conversations I had, I'm at the point now where I can get my own subs. I don't even have to go to a GC to get certain things done because I've made so many connections, but it's just a space that I also really enjoy.
okay, good. You know, we have in media and we have our questions. Is there anything that you wanted to cover that I may have neglected?
The next thing one thing that I am doing, and I have this building in Midtown Detroit, right? This 30-unit building
Mhm,
that we are almost fully rented out. So I'm excited about that.
okay,
But the next phase of what it is that I really want to do is we talk so much about um, this housing crisis that we're having,
yeah,
right, in the United States. And I do feel like everybody deserves a place to go home and feel comfortable and want to be at home. There's people who literally are like, I don't even want to go home. I hate where I live. And so, part of what my mission has been now is to think about how do I become more involved in that space of helping people with housing. And so that building that we did, it was a listen, as much as I thought I knew about real estate, it made me realize what much of a bigger world it is. I mean, I'm learning about all kinds of acronyms I never heard of before. There's so much that comes with it. The building was in a lie tech that we had to get out of. And it's just so many different programs that are available for people who want to get in that space. And I want to see more of us in that space. I
right.
want to see more of us, in the space of buying affordable housing, buying buildings, investing in real estate, buying commercial properties. And so part of why I even did this first step that I did of buying this building in Detroit was to be able to educate myself so that I could do more and encourage people to do more and help them with resources on how to get it done. And so that's really my next mission is doing things that I'm scared to do and pushing myself and challenging myself to learn more in that space. And so that's going to be the next chapter for me for sure.
Being willing to step out of your heaven and educate yourself on something that's mysterious is, courage. Overcome the fear. You got to keep it because if you don't, you're stuck. You don't want
Yeah.
you don't want to be the friend that the other friend comes back and catches you in the exact same spot that you were 10 years ago. Um,
I have friends like that.
yeah, been there, done that. I'm like, I gotta go, bro. Anyway, but I want to thank you so much for your time. How can people find out more, not only about the progressive program, which we'll give them in the editorial as well, but how can they reach out to you? You talked about your club, where you're educating and helping people move through the system. How can people partner with you there and find out more?
Definitely I'm very responsive on my book Angela Yee at Gmail, but I do my Wealth Wednesdays every week and we do focus on real estate a lot. We focus on entrepreneurship as well. I think those things do go hand in hand. And so, there, the Wealth Wednesday Real Estate Club, we also have that. And, I'm always trying to make sure that I am, it's hard for me to like be really vocal about the things I'm doing because I always feel like I don't like talking about myself. But
Mm,
it's important to be able to do that because there's so many things that I want to do that I feel like would be valuable for other people or could inspire other people to do the same, or they could be doing it already and be like, Angela, let me help you. And so, one thing I want to encourage people to do is do not be afraid to ask for help. But when you're asking for help, make sure that you're also willing to reciprocate that.
Roger that. All right, everybody. The Hype Magazine live sessions, a recipe for ownership with Angela Yee. We had some real talk for first time buyers. She gave you the information to reach out to her. I'm not going to repeat it. I'm going to write it and you'll be able to link straight to her. But if you want to educate yourself, she's a trusted voice. Look, millions and millions of people have been connected with her. She has shone a light on millions and millions of people, granted opportunities within the entertainment space through the airwaves. And now she's here doing some terrestrial stuff for the day to day individual who's trying to elevate themselves. This is leadership that we need on the ground daily. Take advantage of it. Don't take it, you know, utilize it. Don't use it. This sister is putting in the work, and I salute you. I appreciate you. Thank you for what you're doing for the fabric of our culture and our uniform. Till next time. We're out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As an artist, we should reflect the time.
Why you so talented?
Cause I'm black.
Why you so amazing?
Cause I'm black.
It's really important that we build characters so that people understand their story matters.
2 Chainz and I both are just really into good food.
And when you know you are royalty, you will only aim in life to be royalty.
We're doing it right now. I don't give a damn what they say about me. Yes, I called your ass out. I know I shouldn't be saying this kind of.
Shout out to Hype Magazine Network.
Shout out to the Hype Magazine Network.